Right, the reason pursuant to 610.20021 subsection 1, and then you'll need a roll call vote to close.
Okay, thanks, Answar, for starting it. I'd like to call to order the June 28th, 2023 meeting for the Detention Facilities Oversight Board. I'm going to start with a roll call vote. I, Janice Mensa, am here. Pam Walker.
Here.
Mike Milton.
Here.
Ornitha Lewis-Walls.
Here.
Hillary Stuckey.
Here.
Barb Baker.
Here.
Okay. Reverend Vice Chair, Reverend Daryl Gray is not currently here. James Dom is not currently here, and Tom Lawson is not currently here. So we're going to change the agenda a little bit. We're going to start with the vote to enter closed session. Could someone make a motion to enter closed session? Someone who has the agenda in front of them.
I'm looking for the agenda.
Gotcha. I can just tell you what it is if you want to.
Barb said it and I wasn't paying attention.
I
It should be
believe the motion just needs to contain a reference to chapter 610.021 subsection 1 to have privileged and confidential communications with legal.
I'm supposed to remember that? Okay, I make a motion that we close the meeting, and Barb's gonna help me say it. Pursuant to section 610, section 2,
No, 021.
021, section 2, to have.
Section 1.
Oh, I thought
Yeah,
section 1 or 2.
section 1.
Section 1, in order to have confidential meeting with counseling attorney.
Do we have a second?
I second.
Okay, I'll do a roll call vote. Pam Walker,
Here, or yes.
Barb Baker,
Yes.
Ornitha Lewis-Walls,
Yes.
Mike Milton,
Yes.
Hillary Stuckey.
Yes.
Those are all members we have present. Okay, so can staff help us go into closed session? We're going to do a training and we'll be back in 15 minutes. Does that sound good, Barb Burkett?
Oh, probably longer.
How long?
At least 30. And then you may have questions, so,
Let's call it 40.
sure.
Really quickly, before we go into closed session, I just want to notice that there's a bunch of community members here. So I just want to say it'd be helpful if y'all can stay around because we definitely want to hear your opinion.
Yeah, Mike, I'm not sure if you were here for the part before, but we're moving the training up since we have a quorum right now. So yes, for the public, if you want to set a timer for 40 minutes, we'll be back. How many do we have in here?
I
Participants?
think we're waiting to get an invitation to go to a different room.
Oh, I meant total.
Oh, sorry.
The participants, you can't see the participants.
24 participants, including the board members, it looks like.
Okay.
Did you practice? Did you practice?
Zoom does its own thing.
Answar, can I get back in the room? I don't know how I got out.
Yeah, me too. We all got kicked out and I need to be able to share the screen.
You got kicked out.
Barb was kicked out from one, and I thought I heard member Stuckey say she was kicked out.
I
Yeah,
think
I was too.
possibly we all were.
Yeah,
we
Am
all got kicked out.
I think I'm in, and am I in?
no,
We're
you're
back in the main
yeah.
meeting.
A message flashed up that it would close in 55 seconds and then it did.
Yeah.
And then it did. Ugh.
So what they gonna put us back in?
Is Anwar available? Cause he's our
Right here.
host, right? Okay. Can you help us?
That's what I'm doing now. Zoom was
Oh,
acting up.
thank you. And I'm sorry I couldn't call you before 5. Like literally IT just left my office like at 5 o'clock. I had so many computer issues today.
Everybody, like how long now?
I think Pam's still not here. Oh. Yeah. I see her though.
Am I in?
I'm in the main room still.
Yeah.
Me too. I think I am too.
We all are. It would ask us to go into the break room.
In-person, hybrid, and closed. Kind of hard
yeah.
for us. And we just got a new projector.
Oh. Like a giant computer,
I'm sorry.
like a giant computer.
Yeah. Yeah. He came down at 3 to help it go smoothly. Ms. Hughes, any ideas for assistance?
I think this one's gonna work.
Did I get them all? We got it.
Okay. Got everybody?
You'll have to scroll down so we can see room 2. Okay, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yep, we got it. You might have to click open all rooms.
There's something going on with Pam.
Yeah, I think if you click open all rooms, it'll start. Yeah. Okay. I think we're just waiting for them to, yeah.
Hello, am I on mute? Let me come, I'm, okay.
You're not on mute, Rev. We heard you.
On it? Are we all back? Okay, hi, Reverend Gray.
Hi, and I do apologize, but I did think I'd let you know in advance I would have trouble getting on until 6.
Oh, okay, sorry, I must have missed that. But we just finished, for you and for all the public, we just finished the. You know what? We didn't do a vote to return to open session. You're on mute, Barb Burkett.
You can't take her off on time.
You
Okay.
are correct. So we need that roll vote. It should be done in the closed, but I suspect it will be unanimous if you want to complete it.
Yeah, could someone motion, or, okay, so you're saying we have to go back into closed session to vote to go into open session?
That would be proper.
Is it absolutely necessary? Because I'm wondering if we're gonna have trouble getting into the breakout room again.
I suggest you, if someone moves to return to open, that you call the roll and we just return at the time that occurs.
Okay, so it looks like if you could put us back in a breakout.
No, I think she's saying that we can do it in this meeting here without going back into breakout.
Was that what you were saying, Barb Burkett?
I suggest if it's physically impossible that we just do that.
Oh, okay. So could someone motion to return us to open session?
I make a motion. We
To return
return
it.
to open session.
Do we have a second?
I'll
Second.
Okay, we're gonna take a roll call vote. Vice Chair Reverend Darrell Gray,
Yes,
Pam Walker,
Yes,
Barb Baker,
Yes,
Juanita Lewis Walls, I think she's trying to find the mute button.
Is she unmute? Mute? Can we
Yeah.
unmute her? Member Baker?
It should be on the, if you go to participants on the right side. Like the white strip on the right side. And then when you see Anita's name, you can click the mute button. Might have to scroll down.
Find, oh, okay. Looking for the scroll button. Can't find her.
Yeah, there she is. Oh, we missed her a little bit.
Did I miss her?
Yeah, I think it's alphabetical. Let's start with
To
the,
unmute her.
Can I propose that we come back to Arnita?
Okay. Mike Milton. There we go.
Yes,
There we go.
yes.
Hillary Stuckey. Do we have Hillary? Okay, Ornitha Lewis Walls.
Yes.
Thank you. Do we have Hillary here? Answer, do you see Hillary Stuckey in the meeting? Okay, we're gonna keep going. The motion passes. I believe that's 6.
That would put you at open at 6:13 PM.
Okay, thank you. Okay, sounds good. Okay, the next we have is the approval of the minutes from the 6/5/23 meeting. Did everyone get a chance to look at that? Are there any corrections? Or will someone motion to approve?
I make a motion that we approve the minutes of the meeting as stated by the chair.
I'll second it.
Thank you. We'll do just a vote by voice. All in favor, say yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Any opposed, say no. Motion passes. The next up on the agenda is training availability planning. We did have, I believe it was Pam who mentioned that it might be better if we get back to our regular schedule. The purpose of this agenda item is so that I can let Nicole know what our availability is so that we could schedule the rest of the trainings. Our regular meeting, what's that? Third Monday?
Yes.
Is that right? Third Monday? Does that still work for everyone?
Barb Burkett, did that work for you?
I need the 4th Monday for the preservation of your hearings. I believe that the 3rd would work.
May I ask a question based upon, to the chair, based upon the number of orientation, information, classes, sessions, whatever they're called, and because we all agree that there's an urgency to complete it, would it make sense to try to do 2 meetings per month in order to accommodate us getting this orientation stuff out of the way?
So Nicole said that the quickest we could do the trainings is like once every 2 weeks, which is basically what you're saying. So
Okay.
if we square up our availability so that the vast majority of us would be there for those dates, then we could do it.
Okay.
So it looks like third Monday is one of them.
First and third Monday? Is that acceptable? First and third Mondays?
So I'll ask, who cannot make first Mondays at 5?
Will Nicole need to be there?
Yes, but she's gonna work around our schedule. Well, she doesn't
she-
need to be there for the training she's not doing. She
Right,
just said if we give our availability, then she'll reach out to the presenters.
right.
Yeah,
I just.
because she's not available till later on Mondays, it said.
She said she's not available on Mondays and Wednesdays
Until 6:30?
until 6:30.
Well, we can do, if she needs to be here for the training, we can start with the regular meeting. And then do the training at the end of,
Okay.
at the end. That might be better as well. Hopefully, we don't have to wait for public comment, or hopefully we don't need to keep public comment at the end of our meetings and after our training, since there's gonna be a long period of them waiting. But I'll ask again, does first Monday not work for anyone here? Otherwise, I will give first and third Mondays as the dates for trainings.
As well.
Okay, so I will give that to
Waiting
Nicole.
room.
The next item on the agenda is
I'm sorry,
the,
Chair, I'm sorry, please excuse me, can I ask a question? I know that's for the board, but can we get an update? What about staff training or staff orientation? Will that be done at the same time? Is that being scheduled? Because the concern that many of us have raised is that in addition to board orientation, there's staff training that is required in order for staff to begin to visit the prison and to do investigations. That's my understanding. If I'm wrong, please correct me. So I'm really, Chair, more concerned about staff getting trained so that they can begin their investigation as we do our training. So is there any update on staff orientation and or training?
I will pass that to Ruby.
The last I've heard, Vice Chair Gray, is that as it relates to the staff and what might be required, they've already done the 16 hours for corrections. Typically, we're going to be present when the board receives its orientation. However, it hasn't been conclusively decided that they would need the orientation that's required by the ordinance for the board.
Could I restate that, Ruby?
Please,
Yes.
did I make that convoluted?
No, you said it perfectly
I
well.
understood.
I just think that I might be able to add some things
Okay.
that I, as a not city employee, can say. Staff are currently fully trained and able to investigate, to do investigations. As far as staff training is concerned, they've not been allowed to do an investigation as far as being able to get inside the CJC is concerned. And I would caution that the idea that staff needs to do the several trainings that the board needs to do that is specific to the board, and the ordinance specified was specific to the board, might be a tactic for obstruction and delay. So it's kind of,
Okay.
do you see what I'm
Okay.
saying?
Oh yeah, and I'm clear about what you're saying and what Ruby said. So I guess my concern, Chairperson, is if the staff are already qualified to do the investigation, if the staff have already gone through the 16 hours of training, which they have, and I heard what you said, they're not being allowed. At some point, I think we need to hear from staff supervisors that they have attempted to go into the center, and if they've been allowed to go in, fine. And if they've not been allowed to go in, I think we need to know that. I think that there needs to be some effort made on behalf of the staff who are qualified and trained, and based upon the ordinance, with appropriate authority to go into the center. I'd like to know if they try to do it and what has been the response to staff going into the center. Does that make sense, Chairperson?
Yes, absolutely. And this topic that you're asking about has been an update since our last meeting. So this is something that's only been, anyways, it's just a new update.
Okay.
And I think it will be something that can be discussed at a later agenda item, where I want to give everyone an update about the public safety hearing, and also talk about the possibility of a second public safety hearing where a staff supervisor could testify to something like that or to the events that have passed. Does that sound good?
That's fine. Fine with me.
Okay.
Really quickly for the record, but didn't the investigators try to already get to the jail and they were denied?
Yes.
The question.
Okay.
So we're not
Thank
speaking
you, Mike.
hypothetical, it's already happening. Okay, got it.
All right. Thank you, Michael.
Yeah, my hypothetical was just for the second hearing and the potential to testify about that. Yeah, because I think I see what you're saying, Reverend Gray, that not only is it important for board members to know that, but it's important for the public and city officials to be made aware / reminded about
Yeah.
that.
Yes.
Is there any other questions related to this training availability planning agenda item? And
No.
I'm gonna send out an email to all of you, which shows the trainings that we've completed and the trainings that we have left according to the second ordinance. Okay, if not, we'll move on to the next agenda item, DFOB succession planning. I put this on here. As we've said many times, it's been a year. We were sworn in July 20th, 2022. Our next meeting will likely be around July 20th, 2023. And it'll be around the time that I will have been chair for a year. And that's how long the term is for chair, according to our procedures, is 1 year. So I think it's important that board members start thinking of who they might want to nominate for chair once I'm not chair, and if you would like to be chair, that kind of thing. Anyone have thoughts on that?
Can the chair serve a second term?
That was my question too.
Because you're doing a great job.
Yeah.
Right.
Could be. How would that happen? You would have to nominate me again, and then we'd have to vote, and I would have to accept.
Right.
Is anyone else interested in being chair?
I'd like us to go back and answer the question based upon the ordinance, is that doable? Before we have a discussion on who wants to be or who, because I think that you've done an excellent job myself, but I also want to make sure of what the ordinance says, and I don't have it in front of me. Does the ordinance allow the chair to be renominated? Because if the ordinance allows it, I think for most of us, it's a done deal. I know I would support Janice.
Oh, God.
But we need to know, and again, I don't have the ordinance in front of me. Does the ordinance allow for it?
It looks like Barb Burkett's on it, so I'm gonna close my laptop.
I'm looking at the original enabling ordinance 71430, and I know there's a subsequent ordinance. I'm not sure it speaks to that, but the original ordinance says that officers shall serve 1-year terms and shall not serve more than 2 consecutive 1-year terms in the same position, but may be reelected to the position after a break-in service of not less than 12 months. So it sounds like any officer can have 2 consecutive 1-year terms, and down the road may conceivably have that office again, but that's what I'm seeing.
Okay, and that's what I understood. That makes sense to me. So I do think, Chair, that at the next meeting, we should be prepared to do that, but I would also advise us, we've sent a letter to the mayor asking, and the Public Safety Committee, asking them to renew those whose 1-year term has expired. And we have people operating under an expired term. I would hate for us to vote somebody in for a year and then the mayor or the Public Safety Committee decide they want to replace them. So I'm hoping, Chair, that we can put it on the next agenda, and by that time we should have had the answer to our communication regarding the extension of the people whose 1-year term expired.
Sure.
So I would agree to put it on to have it on the agenda for our July meeting, without a doubt.
Okay, sounds good. Ruby, do you know if we've received a response about our email asking to renew the 1-year terms?
I have not received a response. I
Okay,
know that the letters were delivered, but I'm not even sure how long that's been. Ophelia. and Kawana.
Mhm.
Do you recall exactly when the secretary's letter was delivered to both the committee and the mayor?
It sounds,
June sixth?
it sounds like they're gonna need a reminder. Yeah, Reverend Gray, that's a good point to bring up. I do have a 1-year term that the mayor's office has said has expired, but I do not believe expires until July 20th. But that's correct. I was appointed by the alders at the time. So I think it's,
The committee.
I
Public
believe it's
Safety
up to
Committee.
them to decide whether or not I'm renewed.
Correct.
Yeah, so it sounds like some of you want me to be chair again. If it comes to that, I'll do it. I am interested in being a voting member of the board with less of the restrictions about saying what I think that comes with being the chair, but I would do it again for one single more year. Just one, maybe.
Well, Chair, you mentioned some of us want you to be chair. I think that from what I've heard, all of us want you to be chair. So I want that, well, I want to make sure that we're clear, but I haven't heard anybody say, no, they don't want you to be chair. I have asked, just so you know, I have asked one of the alder people to put me in touch with the chair of public safety for a meeting. And that was one of the things that I was going to ask at that meeting, that those nominees from the Public Safety Committee be renewed, so that there's public record. I've asked for the meeting. That's one of the agenda items. So I know, like you said, we want to follow up, but I just wanted to make sure that you and the board knew that I had made that overture.
Sounds good. I also sent a letter to the Public Safety Committee, but I will be talking about that in the agenda item at the end where I talk about the last public safety hearing.
Okay.
Anyone else have thoughts on this succession planning? I also think that we are going to want to consider, in the strange event that the 5 of us who the mayor's office claim are serving beyond term are all removed, and we just had 4 other people, like, I want us to think about succession planning outside of just how, like, replacing the chair or whatever, but in the event that people are removed, we have less than 9 people. How does voting work? That kind of thing.
Chair,
Yeah.
my letter notes 4 people in expired terms. Janice Mensah, Hillary Stuckey, Arnitha Lewis Walls, and Thomas Lawson. And under new business, I'm going to make a motion that we amend our bylaws to allow for a simple majority instead of a 2/3 supermajority for
Okay.
quorum.
Yes, that sounds good, and you're correct. I meant 4 instead of 5.
Yeah.
Okay. Are you ready to move to the next agenda item?
Oh, and Chair, may I mention the same thing that I read from the enabling ordinance is consistent in 71647, so that's all good.
Excellent.
Okay. So I put guest speakers as the next agenda item. I thought that Nicole Barton and or Director Coyle might be on. That was when I made the agenda. So Nicole did let us know that she's not going to be able to be here. She's out of town. Yeah, so no guest speakers that will be on.
Yeah, it looks like Heather Taylor is here from Public Safety. So just want to make room in case Heather was representing the Public Safety Department.
I'm not allowed to represent public safety, unfortunately, so.
Okay. I did want to ask about potential guest speakers that we would like to hear from at our next meeting or at future meetings. does anyone have ideas for guest speakers that they would like to come speak to us?
I would ask that we send an invitation to Sheriff Vernon Betts. And the reason for that is that they are responsible for some of the space in the Justice Center. And I'd like to get a report from them on their relationship with the Justice Center, specifically the commissioner, and how they have viewed the environment, the condition, and the treatment of detainees who utilize their space.
So if we're gonna have Sheriff Betts on here, I would like to, well, just for anyone, I'd like to invite them with a focused, this is what we would like you to speak about, or this is how your experience, I don't know what I'm saying.
I
But
thought,
here's-
I think I know sometimes I don't make things as clear as I ought to, but I think that's the focus that we want based upon the sheriff's office occupying space in the correction center. We would like to hear from him and or his representative the relationship that the sheriff's office has with the Commissioner of Corrections, his overview of the environment and conditions as it relates to detainees that occupy his space.
His space is, I'm not understanding, is there a specific part of the CJC that is Sheriff Betts' space?
Yes.
Which part? Is there like a part?
I
think
didn't hear
it's-
your question.
I think it's on the second floor.
Yes.
And the police have their own space in that building too, and that's one of the big issues is how poorly that's coordinated. That's why I asked Nicole that question about the second floor. Those people are waiting to get processed into CJC, and some of them wait for weeks in a 12 by 6 foot cell with 10 other people.
And Chair, I have a reason. I mean, my reasoning for asking that is that I believe that where we cannot get into that building, the sheriff and his deputies have access to that building. And if we ask them to come to speak to what they are observing in that building, I think that we may be in for some, if they agree, for some critical information. Without me going into a whole lot more information, Chair, about content.
Sure. It sounds like you have a better understanding of Sheriff Betts' relationship with the CJC than I do. Could you draft what the wording of the invitation would be? And I could review it and make sure it gets on our letterhead and is sent to Sheriff Betts.
I would be delighted, Chair. Thank you.
Does anyone on the board have strong objections to inviting Sheriff Betts to appear before us at a meeting? Okay.
I have strong objections.
Okay.
Sheriff Betts,
I wanted to open it
we
up.
have heard from several people who were formerly detained inside of CJC that Sheriff Betts was one of the people who were abusing them. So, and I also don't think that, Sheriff Betts specifically were one of the people who were instructing his people to abuse people inside of CJC. I don't understand or see what information he will provide, because he is also indicated in the conditions of the jail as well. So, I mean, I don't know if I would say strong objections, but I have paused that he would provide any more information that's favorable to us than, what we already getting from the warden.
Can I respond to that, Chair, of my rationale? Can I respond to Mike?
Yes.
I don't doubt anything you say at all. I don't doubt any of it, except I don't know it to be I don't know it to be fact. And so for me and for us as a board, we don't doubt you. But because we're not able to verify what is being said, the only way that we can hold people accountable is to invite them, ask them questions, let them answer, and then hopefully through a process, whenever we're allowed to actuate that process, we can determine whether or not people are lying or telling the truth. We can hold people accountable, but we can't hold people accountable if we don't bring them in the room and ask them questions. They're in the building. And so there's specific questions that I have for Sheriff Betts based upon the fact that he's in the building. And when I ask the question and they answer the question and we do due diligence, if we determine they're telling the truth, great. If we determine they're not telling the truth, then we have an opportunity to move forward. But to not bring them in because, of reasons that have not been substantiated, I think does a disservice to the process of review, investigation, and oversight.
Let me just say, I feel like tensions might be rising around this issue.
I don't have
I
any
hope,
tension. I have no tension. I have no problem. I love Mike. I don't disagree with what Mike is saying. I just think we haven't validated it, Chair. So there are absolutely no tensions on my part.
okay, well, I feel tension, I suppose. And I propose that maybe to help with this, we can consider this an open discussion, and I will open it up to all board members and make sure everyone has the chance to speak once before someone speaks twice. So before, and I think that at the end of this, we'll take a vote on whether or not to invite Sheriff Betts. If it passes, Reverend Gray, could you please do what you agreed to before with drafting the invitation? If it doesn't pass, then we'll just move on. I will say
Chair,
that
we're going to vote, Chair, for point of privilege, point of information,
sure.
or I'm sorry, point of clarity. Are we going to take a vote on everyone that is suggested? If a board member makes a request that someone comes in to give a presentation or to provide information, if a board member makes a recommendation for someone to come in, are we going to take a vote on everyone that's recommended? I just want to be clear, Chair.
Yes, I see what you're saying. Because we haven't voted on everyone that has been suggested or speak
That's
in
right.
the past. I have decided that we're going to vote on this one since there seems to be disagreement. And if that disagreement ends up to be the minority of the group, then as with all other motions, the majority will pass it or it won't pass. But I do see what you're saying. And if the board feels like we should either vote on everyone that is invited or not vote on everyone that's invited, that can be something that someone motions to put into the bylaws or something like that. The other thing I was going to say is, based on what I'm hearing from Reverend Gray and from Mike Milton, one possibility is that we invite Sheriff Betts to come speak before us. All board members can send me questions that they would like to be asked, and we'll stick to those questions or something like that. I would also like to say that, to Mike's point and to something that Reverend Gray mentioned before, theoretically, we could have Sheriff Betts on here. He could answer some questions, and then we could investigate those statements. But in reality, we don't have the proven capability to investigate things inside the CJC. So I do hear what Mike's saying about the concern of bringing someone on to make statements and then not being able to investigate, which is a concern we have with all of our work, since investigating is our purpose. So I want to open it up to the other board members here. I'm gonna go to everyone and I'll just give you the chance to speak. If you don't want to speak, you don't have to. I'm gonna start with Pam. Do you have an opinion on this?
Yes, I think we should hear from people who touch CJC in some way, shape, or fashion. And do that with skepticism if that's necessary. But they're there. They're involved in the process. And we need to hear from them. The fact that it's a public forum and that gives them a platform can't be helped. So anyone that on the board that wants to hear from someone, I support that.
Thank you, Pam. Let me just say this so that you could speak on it before I go to everyone. And everyone will have the chance to speak on this. We haven't previously allowed the public or given space for the public to ask questions of the people we invite. Maybe that's something to consider, whether we want that to happen in this case or whether we want that to happen in any future case. Or if we want to bring someone back to have that happen. Pam, do you have thoughts on that?
Yeah, I can't support that. I don't want to set up a situation of ambush or confrontation or argument that are people who are not on the board that we can't control. We're a board and we need to function within our responsibilities. And I love hearing comments from the members of the public, but to allow them a responsibility of questioning our witnesses, I think is inappropriate.
Okay, thank you for your opinion, Pam. I will go next to Barb Baker. Do you have any thoughts you'd like to share?
I'm gonna I'm leaning either way, but I do hear what Mike is saying, because the sheriff don't really have their office is not as really inside the jail and stuff, and I have heard stories about them, and they're not very nice to other clients there as well. So I'll go with the majority, but I'm leaning with Mike.
Thank you, Barb. Ornitha Lewis Walls, would you like to speak on this issue?
Oh, I've never been incarcerated, so I don't know anything about what goes on in there, but I think I might be able to gain some knowledge just from listening to the sheriff or one of his representatives, and then that way we would have at least some ammunition to use if we needed it, but I'll go along with whatever, everybody else says.
Okay, thank you, Ornitha. Hillary Stuckey, I know that you've had some issues with being able to not be kicked out of the meeting. I'm not sure what Zoom's doing with that. I apologize. Are you here with us? Hillary Stuckey? Okay, Ansvar, if you do see that she hops in, if you could just let me know. Okay, cool. So let me offer people the chance to speak again. And I'm not going to count the original times that Mike and Reverend Gray spoke, since we didn't really begin the discussion yet. So I will pass it to Mike, if you would like to speak again.
Yeah, it's not a hill I gotta die on. I feel like we're losing members of the public. We don't hear from them often. Bring them if y'all want to. It's not gonna give any results for sure. I'm happy to move on.
Okay. I appreciate you keeping the public in mind. That's a good reminder. I'm sorry that the public comment is at the end of the agenda. We really will try to get to that item and not keep you on too long. I know that it's difficult to come to a Zoom meeting and stay on for several hours, and we really do appreciate you coming. We would like to hear from you. Reverend Gray, do you have any final comments on this?
Yeah, I you know, and I typically don't disagree with Mike. We typically on the same page. I disagree with the comment share that we're not going to gain anything. We don't know what we're going to gain until we ask. And I think that if we operate with, as far as bringing in speakers with a presumption that we're not going to gain anything, then there's a lot of people we may not bring. If I did not think that there was something to gain, some information to gain, to glean from bringing Sheriff Betts in, I would not have recommended it, because I don't want to waste our time either. And a lot of our time has been wasted. And so I'm hoping that the board we'll look at each other. If Mike recommended somebody to come in, obviously Mike has a reason for that. If Ms. Stuckey recommends somebody, and I'm going to respect their reason for that. Now, that's not to say I'm not going to give my opinion, but at the end of the day, I would not have recommended it. And for clarification, the sheriff's department does have space in the building. When you cross that bridge between the Carnahan Court building, there is a bridge that the detainees have to come across from the detention center to the courthouse. When you cross that bridge, the sheriff's office has a group of holding cells within the Justice Center. And in those holding cells are detainees. And so that people on this call understand, board members, in some of those holding cells, and this is a matter of fact. I'm trying not to say too much until you want to know what's going on in those holding cells. You ask the people who are responsible for those holding cells and hope that they tell the truth.
And it's the sheriffs that's responsible for everybody once they get to the holding cell, as far as transporting them from
Exactly.
the jail to the holding cell. So they're under the sheriff's care. Then those are the ones that's supposed to make sure they get their lunch if they there a certain while and all that.
And my reason, and I'm gonna just put it out there, my reasoning for asking the sheriff chair, and again, I appreciate the public as well, but the board, also has a responsibility. So whatever time we take up, we try to make sure that it is that it is of value. So to the board, to the public, I'm hoping that you are getting information that is relevant and important. Mike asked a question to Miss Nicole regarding, are people sleeping on the floors in the jail? And the response was no. After detainees are processed for admission, they're giving a cell with bunks. Now, that's half true. But only if you know it for a fact can you respond to it. I want to call the sheriff's people in and ask that same question, because that response is half true. Miss Walker has made a comment. Pam's right. You have people on a certain floor that may not have been processed because maybe they're detoxing. Maybe they're going through withdrawals. Maybe they're on suicide watch. And they haven't been processed because they haven't been processed for admission because they have not finished detoxing, or they're on suicide watch or something else. They haven't been admitted, but they're still in the center. And in the center, some of them find themselves in cells, more than one, sleeping on the floor. So when I ask a question, I don't ask a dumb question. I usually have the answer before I ask the question. I'm hoping that the board will show some, for each board member, a little bit of, leeway without us giving out too much information until we're ready. I think I've said more than I really wanted to say. And I think it's dangerous, Chair, for us to have to vote on each speaker. I think that if a board member in his or her capacity makes a request for someone to come before the board, I think that that board member's request should be honored. But that's just me. And
Okay,
I rest.
thank you for your comments. I will say, we do usually vote on the letters that go out. And I do remember that we have voted to officially invite someone to our meeting, like the commissioner, that kind of thing. But I do see what you're saying. I see what everyone is saying. I still think we should take a vote. It seems like, well, actually, we'll take a roll call vote anyways. Okay, so did we have a motion? Reverend
I
Gray,
guess
do you,
I'll make a motion that we invite Sheriff Betts to our next meeting for the reasons that I stated.
do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. We'll take a roll call vote on this. Reverend Darrell Gray,
Yes.
Pam Walker,
Yes,
Art Baker,
Yes.
Ornitha Lewis Walls,
Yes,
Mike Milton,
Yes.
and Hillary Stuckey. Shucks. All right, looks like we don't have her right now, but it passes. It's unanimous. I appreciate everyone offering their comments. I hope it's clear my intention in taking a vote on this is so we can act resolutely and on the same accord while we move forward. But we can move on from this item unless there are other guest speakers that people would like to invite.
yes, Chair, I have three.
Sure.
I would like somebody from the district attorney's office, or maybe Nicole could do it, but I would like somebody to present to us on whether or not cases are moving more quickly now, and there's any hope of people getting a quick and fair trial. Instead of being in the jail system as long as they've been, partly complicated by COVID, many other things, but I just haven't heard an update on that. I know he's bringing on more prosecutors. I don't know what that's going to do to the public defender's office. I didn't hear they were bringing on 8 more public defenders. So I'd like to hear about that aspect. And then I was supposed to get with Mike, and I have not done that. I apologize. I would
Pam,
like to.
could I just make a comment on the first one?
Uh-huh.
Since the person or the kind of expertise you're looking for, it sounds like it's not directly about a detention facility. I'm concerned that in our meetings, we're going to have a lot of agenda items to talk about, as well as public comment, as well as the trainings moving forward. Does it sound good to you to have someone speak on that in writing instead of coming on for a
Oh,
meeting?
yeah, that's fine to do that first. Yeah.
Okay, if you could figure out who you think is best to speak on that, and you could send me whatever you would like to ask them, we'll put it
Okay.
on letterhead, we'll get it out.
Okay.
And please continue about the other ones.
My other 2 were, Mike shared with us some depositions. I would like to hear from both of those people. One was Doris Shira, and I don't remember the doctor's name, but if it's okay, I'll still get with Mike and figure out how to invite them.
Okay, so basically, just to restate this, 2 of the witnesses in the public deposition that Mike shared about the conditions at the CJC, Pam would like to invite them to the meeting. Do we have any strong objections to that? If anyone has strong objections or something like that, then we'll take a vote. Otherwise, we're just gonna move forward. Going once, going twice. Okay, Pam, do you want to take points? So I want to hear from board members on this. Either, I guess, Pam, if you could draft invitations to those two people from the deposition and could send them to me, then we'll get those letters out.
Right.
Also feel free, since we're agreed on this anyway, feel free to reach out to them directly by call or email or however you want to let them know a letter's coming, inviting them to the meeting. And so we can coordinate that way instead of, I guess, by mail. I'm not sure what couriers do, but yeah. Okay, sounds good. Anyone else have ideas about guest speakers? Anyone that we have already heard from or already invited that we'd like to invite again? Okay, we're gonna move on then. Now we're into new business. There are a couple of things that I would like to talk about here. A lot has happened since our last meeting. One is the deposition. Mike, did you want to discuss this at all, or do you want to go in some more depth on this at another meeting?
I mean, I could share briefly for the public. So I shared the deposition for the lawsuit that our city and MacArthur Justice Center has against the jail. Has some pretty horrible information about what they have seen and what they have gathered from the jail, including people being maced while standing still, including macing people while they're in their bunks and telling them that they're going to marinate in the mace, including people being starved.
I'm so, Mike, can I interrupt you?
Yeah, sure.
Barb Baker, are you still on here?
Yes, I am.
You said you had to go at 7. Do you have to go like right this minute?
No, I don't. I'm gonna try to stay around to 7:30.
Okay, do you mind if we put a pause on the deposition just for a second, Mike? I think the only other thing that we might want to vote on, I want to make sure that we have everyone here for that. Pam, you were talking about voting on bylaws. You're on mute.
Yes, I don't know if everyone was here for that discussion, but according to the bylaws that we passed ourselves, we put that we needed a supermajority of 6 for a quorum. And with all the effort that's going into the training and having so many meetings and knowing that people may have to miss those, we're asking people to put a lot of time and effort into coming to our meetings and doing the training. I would like to make a motion that we go with a simple majority of 5 people. And then after the training's done, if we want to revisit that, we can. I want as many people of the board here when we conduct business as we can get. I know the chair works hard to do that around people's schedules, but I just don't want our quorum to be the reason we don't get this training done.
So it sounds like the motion. Let me ask Barb Burkett, do we need notice to change bylaws? Ruby mentioned that might be.
Yeah, typically you would need to put that in your agenda. I believe that this member, you were trying to fit that into one of the agenda items. You thought that it fit. I'm not looking at the agenda right now. Is that correct?
This is new business. So we do need a notice to change the bylaws, or we don't need a notice?
Well, it's a bit of your agenda was sufficient to allow the public to know what was going to be talked about. This is new business. This is internal business. This would be an amendment to the document adopted on October 24th, 2022. That's on your website called Detention Facilities Oversight Board procedural rules. So if the motion, it's in section 1, paragraph 2, to change the 6 to 5. I think that you could do that. You certainly want to do it publicly. I think you could do that bit of business and new business. If anyone disagrees, they may vote accordingly.
Okay, so it sounds like Pam is making a motion to change our quorum from 6 to 5. Do we have a second?
I
A
second.
second.
Okay, we're gonna take a voice vote on changing the quorum from 6 to 5. All in favor, say yes.
Yes.
Yes,
Yes,
Yes.
Any opposed, say no. The motion passes. Ruby, or is there someone on staff that could take point in making that change to the document on our city website?
Yes.
Just that the quorum is from 6 to 5?
Yes, we can make the amendment, and then circulate it.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Mike, for pausing. We can return to Mike's discussion on the deposition.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I'll just read this part really quickly and we can move on. This came from one of the people that Pam has suggested that we invite, but it says that this person, while suffering from asthma, was detained in CJC, was about to be put in a housing unit with a COVID positive detainee. When he expressed his concerns to the custody of the staff when he was cuffed, they sprayed him. He did his best to remain calm and then was maced a second time by Captain Wills and correctly assumed that it had not taken to effect. Then put in a cell with no running water to drink, bathe, or flush waste for 8 days. As was the case with this person too, above, the only water was given to him to drink was from a little cooler at meal times. So just an example of some of the horrible mistreatment that's happening inside of the jails that was investigated by experts in the health field, in the public health field, and which is why it's so important for us to figure out how we can get as much information as possible, given the fact that we've been instructed multiple times. So I'll stop there.
Thank you, Mike. Related to that, I have copies of the complaints that were made to the DFOB. So not CJC complaints, but complaints made to the DFOB during this year. And they just confirm some of what is mentioned in the deposition and some of the things that we've been hearing from the public. Obviously, all very concerning things about the excessive use of mace, about being denied the ability to shower, and those sorts of things. I would appreciate it if other board members could review the complaints made to the DFOB. Director Coyle currently is evaluating whether or not these complaints can be uploaded to the shared box, which was made for those complaints so that we could all easily access them. So I would say that time is of the essence in terms of reviewing these complaints. I'm not sure how long, if at all, we'll have access to them. Does everyone understand what I'm saying? If you could reach out to me about making arrangements for getting these complaints, that would be great.
My question is, so I would like to review them. And so if we just reach out to you, then we can make arrangements to get the copies. That's what you're saying?
Why don't you reach out to me?
Yeah, that's what I asked. And then secondly, does staff have copies of these complaints?
They do, yes.
Okay. All right. So I'll reach out. I'll send you an email and we'll figure out how to get
Okay.
those. All right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sure. I also want to communicate that. So, how to say this? There's a lot of power that that Director Coyle has, the interim public safety Director Coyle has on our ability to review complaints submitted directly to the DFOB. So the process for reviewing these complaints apparently needs to be approved by Director Coyle. And part of the process that he's currently approved involves sending the complaints to the CJC and to the city councilor. Mind you, the complaints weren't sent to us as board members. So I say that to share that information with you. I don't know what to do about it. It's something that I would like to discuss with the Public Safety Committee if they accept the invitation I've sent to them, requesting that I be invited to the second hearing where that discusses the DFOB. There was a first hearing that discussed the DFOB and discussed the CJC. Matt Brumman spoke, Nicole spoke, and Ruby was allowed to speak a little bit at the end. I've sent a letter to the Public Safety Committee asking that I'm allowed to speak, and that the warden is asked and encouraged to speak as well. She wasn't at the first one. And as you know, we haven't heard from her. Additionally, another letter I sent was to remind the mayor and Director Coyle that the deadline to either request or refuse to request the warden's resignation is June 30th. So they have 2 days.
Can I ask a point of clarification on the first point you made? So when the report, when the person detained makes a complaint, the complaint goes to Director Coyle, and the Director Coyle sends those complaints back to the warden. Is that correct? But they don't come to us.
Okay, so you're missing the part where it does come to the DFOB, but by that, it means DFOB staff. So Director Coyle, he'll really have to come here to speak on this. I asked him if he could confirm for staff that we are allowed access to review the complaints. I was hoping to get them scanned onto the box so that we could all see them before this meeting. Director Coyle's response, let me read it. Hold on. Director Coyle's response was, Janice, your request can't be decided by Wednesday. However, I would like to see the DFOB active at some level while the reset is underway and the needed training is taking place. I will begin the internal discussion with Nicole this week. So, to my understanding, that is the opposite of what he said in the last meeting where he spoke and said that we did not need the rest of this training to be able to review complaints. But it seems like things are changing on that front. Additionally, you said that a detained person was making the complaint. Third parties can also make the complaint. I'm correct on that?
Well, I've not been able to identify any authority for not accepting third-party complaints. I think that may have been an administrative practice at some earlier point.
Okay, so I'll say.
So everything's under review.
Okay, well, that's just true for all of this.
Right.
I will say I encourage third parties to make a complaint.
And let's just think clearly. Everything under review means that the rules are changing. The closer that we get to some type of transparency, the rules are changing. Am I hearing that correctly?
I don't know that I'm prepared to draw that conclusion, Member Milton. I'm just saying we're in a transition. We're in a transition period. We have a relatively new public safety director and a person who has been delegated some amount of authority with respect to the process. And so what I'm comfortable saying at this point is that several of the practices, the draft policy and procedures that the board may have reviewed previously, all are subject to review. And I am not predisposed to say what that end result will be. But I do believe that all of the parties involved do want to see a point where we're able to fully and completely implement the ordinance and the spirit and intent of the Board of Aldermen who enacted that ordinance.
Let me say, Mike, thank you, Ruby. As a non-city employee, let me say yes, Mike. The rules are changing. The rules are going to keep changing. Personally, I do not believe that everyone is invested in oversight or transparency. That is partially, actually, that's like 99% of the reason that I signed a letter calling for the warden's resignation. Anyone else have questions on this? It's
I'm trying to be, I'm trying to understand when you ask, do we have questions on it? I think that we've every meeting we've been consistent. We've been consistent as a board, that it is our, that based upon the inaction of the Commissioner for Corrections, based upon everything that we've experienced, it is the conclusion of the board in its entirety that the Commissioner for Corrections, supported by the city councilor, has obstructed the work of the Detention Facilities Oversight Board. That is our conclusion. And we have gone as far as a board to put it in writing, to make it public, and without a mass resignation. So we've done all that. I will go on record tonight in this meeting to say that I have personally observed in the correction facility holding cells that are overcrowded with men, multiple numbers, having to sleep in a holding cell, several people for days. For days. It is a fact. It is not conjecture. It is not innuendo. It is not allegation. It is a fact. I've seen it. It exists in the correction center. It is inhumane. It is unconstitutional. And the fact that we keep getting this inaction by this administration, by the director of public safety, I think the Public Safety Committee also has an obligation to go over there, and if we can't get in there, elected officials, older people who are members of the Public Safety Committee should demand access without asking in advance. You still have locks that have not been fixed. You still have locks in that building where detainees can, at their will, open the door. You've just had an attempted escape from that building. These are facts. And the reason that we cannot substantiate them publicly, because we are being denied access. This is real. I don't want to have a bunch of meetings where we keep doing the same thing. I have witnessed this with my own eyes, board members. It's happening. Even now as we speak. You have over 600 and some detainees in there. And with this circuit attorney and his commitment to putting people in jail, that number is going to go up before the end of the summer. The goal of the commissioner for corrections is for her to be able to keep at least 1,200 people in there, doubling up bucks. We are being made to be a joke. And I, for one, am at the end of my rope. So I've already asked us, how do we go about getting our own lawyer? Because the city attorney's office is not going to help us. How do we get our own lawyer? I think that needs to be on the next agenda. I'm asking Chair if we'll put that on the agenda item and be clear about what we have to do and then make the request. And let the city councilor tell us, no, you can't have this one. No, it's enough. People are being treated like animals in that building. And I've seen it with my own eyes. I've had enough. I'm sorry, Chair. I'm sorry. I've had enough. People are being treated like animals right now as we speak. And this city ought to be ashamed of itself. This administration ought to be ashamed of itself for allowing it. Aldermen who talk about public accountability and police reform and criminal justice reform ought to be ashamed of themselves for not demanding access immediately. It's a joke.
You certainly don't have to apologize to me, Reverend Gray. I agree with everything you said.
If I had not seen what I saw today, Chair, if I had not, I saw it with my own eyes today.
Are you
with my own
saying
eyes.
you were allowed inside?
Chair. Please, I'm asking you not to ask me that question.
Okay.
I'm saying to you, I've seen
Sure.
it with my own eyes. If I have to go on record, at some point I will, but I'm saying to this board tonight, today, I saw it with my own eyes, and that's all I can say. That's all I'm at liberty to say.
We understand. Well, what do you think about talking about this before the Public Safety Committee at the next hearing related to the CJC?
I think we ought to say it. I think we need to say it. We need to ensure that we're on the agenda for the next meeting and that we say it. And I'm prepared to say on record that I've seen with my own eyes the overcrowded situation in these cells, the inhumane treatment of human beings in that building. And so I think that we have, and I think that, Chair, you're right. And I think Mike has said it, Pam has said it. The Public Safety Committee has the overall responsibility because the director, the Commissioner of Corrections has to answer to the Public Safety Committee. We've got to answer to the Public Safety Committee. The Commissioner for Public, all of that public safety comes under elected officials. The mayor may appoint people, but the ordinance, the law is created by the lawmakers. And they have and if they don't respond, then they're complicit. Elected officials, all the people.
I'm wondering do we need to ask the Public Safety Committee to request her resignation or to fire her?
I would say yes.
Okay, well, I'm willing to do that when I appear before them. I had already planned to do this, but I would like to invite them to join me for a tour of the CJC, the Public Safety Committee. And I think what you're saying, Reverend Gray, speaks to why the rules keep changing and have been changing for a year. If any,
You're right. And just as a matter of point of clarity, the mayor did appoint the director of public safety. That was an appointment by the mayor. As a
Correct.
matter of clarity, the mayor did appoint and or hire, whatever word you want to use, the commissioner of corrections. Those are two people that the mayor, the city councilor is an appointment and or hire of the mayor. So if I'm using the word appointment or hire, those three people come under the authority of the mayor. The three people that we're talking about, the commissioner of corrections, the commissioner for public safety, director of public safety, and the city councilor are all people who are there as a result of the mayor's appointment and or selection. Is that not correct?
Mhm.
Okay, that was my
That's correct. The Commissioner of Corrections is hired by the Director of Public Safety, and it's also the Civilian Oversight Board Commissioner is hired by the Director of Public Safety. So you have the Office of Violence Prevention, Fire, Police Department Commissioner, just all those divisions, Buildings Division, Excise Division, Neighborhood Stabilization Team as well. Those are all civil service jobs that are not appointments, just for a point of clarity there.
Good. I stand
And I'll go
corrected.
back to my-
No, thank you very much, Deputy Director. And I know, and you're right. Commission of Corrections comes under public safety, and you're right. That was my mistake. I stand corrected on that.
I see that we're at 7:25. I do really want to get to public comment. I don't think that we have anything else that needs to be addressed as an agenda item right now. Pam, I would like to speak to you after about, I think we need a point person to keep following up with Nicole on these questions that we're asking that never get really answered. Would you be willing to do that? Or should I
Sure.
speak? Okay, thank you. And then otherwise, we have some agenda items for next meeting regarding the chair election, talking about complaints more in depth, and then seeking independent counsel. But I would like to move to public comment. Okay, so we're gonna move to public comment. If any members of the public haven't been here before, we give everyone 3 minutes. You can say what you want, ask us questions. You have 3 minutes. If you could raise your hand on the video or get our attention somehow, I will call on people in the order that I see them. Or you could even come off mute and just say your name you'd like to speak, and I'll make a note. Oh, we got one? Who? I see someone has their hand raised. Could you come off mute so we know who you are? I just can't tell right now.
Hi, yeah, my name is Maya.
Sure, I will start the timer and I will let you know when you have 2 minutes and then when you have 1 minute. Does that sound good?
Okay, sounds good.
Go ahead.
Yeah, my question is, what role is the public expected to play in these meetings? And would the board consider restructuring to allow for more room and opportunity for public engagement? I raised this concern after a significant portion of the time going to a training that was not made available to the public. And also, after sentiment being expressed by the board of when guest speakers are brought on, that they want that closed off from public engagement. So if we could please speak to the specifics of, again, what role the public is expected to play, and the board's ideas behind restructuring to allow for more room for public engagement. Thank you.
Thank you, Maya. I'll speak to one of the things you talked about. As far as the public's role in this meeting, other than I would say completely absurd things, that's up for the board to decide. It's up for the board to decide whether or not we would like to make public questions available to guest speakers. I have considered what you are talking about with how difficult it is to come on to this meeting and be on for 2 hours of other people speaking, or perhaps a closed meeting and just waiting to speak at the end. For the board, or actually, I'll ask Maya if this sounds like something that responds to your question. Do you think it would be more accessible if we had like 10 to 15 minutes at the beginning for public comment, then we do the meeting, and then we can have 10 to 15 minutes at the end for public comment as well? Maya?
Yeah, no, I hear you. I do think it's important for the agenda to be addressed so that public comment can be informed by what is going on in the meeting. But I do believe if there's business of the board that is not accessible to the public, then my concern is if that's taking a significant amount of the time for the meeting, then what opportunity is left for public engagement when that's available?
Okay, I think that having public comment at the beginning and the end, this is for board members now. Having public comment at the beginning of the end might be helpful. I'm not sure if there's anything we can do about public engagement while we're in a closed session. If we had our meeting in person, I guess the public could engage with one another while we're in a closed session, but I'm not sure what options we have for that, but that's something that we can discuss at the next meeting, public
I was gonna
engagement.
make that recommendation that the county council just enacted basically the same thing because they had the same issue. And so they are allowing public comment at the beginning where the public can ask questions as it relates to the agenda. And so in the beginning, public comments as relates to to the agenda, because the agenda is put out in advance. So that's specific. And then at the end, they allow public comments that may be more general in nature. So as a board member, I would totally support public comments in the beginning and the end. And if you're doing the beginning, for those people who want to stay, I mean, we still have business to discuss as a board. And oftentimes we don't know if it's going to be an hour or an hour and a half. It just depends on the agenda itself. But then the public's not penalized or held hostage. So I would definitely agree, Chair, on public comments both in the beginning and the end. And as far as public engagement as a whole, I think that we're asking for public comments because the public will see a lot of things that we won't see. What the public may have a different perspective, and it just gives the public an opportunity to provide input. Therefore, that's the limited engagement that's been spelled out by the board and by the ordinance.
Okay, so for the next agenda, I will put public comment at the beginning and the end. I see someone else has their hand up. Could you come off mute and let us know that you would like to speak?
Greetings. Thank you for your time. I was asking, I was listening to this meeting, and well, that's neither here nor there. But just to build off what Reverend Daryl Gray said, I am someone who's just as impacted, and I've slept in those deplorable conditions, to say the least. And across the United States, prison and jail has been so, it's been one of those animals that's hard to really encounter because of the lack of transparency, and it's intentional. And what you guys are speaking of today is lack of transparency and intent, which is also intentional. And I'm talking about with the prisoner complaint systems. I'm talking about with the staff, and I want to know what is the next step, because we all know, and I'm pretty sure you guys are aware now, that they're gonna keep stonewalling. You're gonna get stonewalled at every point or place of impact. So what would be the next step now? Because I don't think that talking to a sheriff or someone who's pretty much the oppressor is gonna allow you into the house and to let you know what's going on in my house. So what will be a step forward?
Thank you for your comment, Marcus. I'm wondering, I have thoughts on this, but do you want a specific person to respond? Was that addressed towards a specific person, or do you just want to hear from the board?
It was a question for the board. I would like to hear, please, and please bear with me, but I would like to hear a response from everybody who's on the board, what their idea is and what their thoughts on it is, because as of right now, it's going to be a Stonewall. Next year around this time, we'll be talking about the same thing. So I want to know anybody's idea of what's the pathway forward now.
Okay.
Meaningful.
Thank you, Marcus. I think that's a great question. And I will say, I do not know the answer to the best path forward. I will say that a year ago, I thought it was being on the board. I thought that this is where I could do the most good with this. And after a year of delays, I have not been able to improve the quality of life for one single person in the CJC. And that is the only thing I wanted to do on this board. I hope that the public does not for a second think that coming to board meetings or speaking on board meetings or doing things related to the board is the only way to get justice for the people inside the CJC. One of the difficult things about being chair of this board is that I have to keep asking people for answers, asking people for permission to do what the ordinance said that we could do. And I hear what you're saying, Marcus. I know that they're not going to give me permission. They're not going to let me in. The one time I was let in, it was for less than 15 minutes. They physically pushed me out because, as Reverend Gray's experience shows, if we saw this with our own eyes, I don't want to incite a riot, but I would say that if the public saw what was going on inside the CJC with their own eyes, there would be a riot, because it is disgusting. It is the most embarrassing thing I've ever seen in this city. So as far as what do we do next? I don't know.
Chair, if I can respond to Marcus, I think that I think we've said some of it tonight. You've said it. Number one, our next step has got to be to make our appeal to the Public Safety Committee. We've made an appeal to the administration. We've made an appeal to the Director of Public Safety. We've made an appeal to the Director of Corrections. We've done that. So what we've said tonight, Marcus, next step, we've got to make an appeal to the Public Safety Committee and elected officials, all the people who have campaigned on criminal justice reform and accountability and trend. So now we've got to go to those people and take our concerns to them. That's number one. Number two, as I indicated at our next meeting, I'd like us to talk about legal representation, that as a board, we need our own legal representation. Because we do have subpoena power. We need to understand what that means. And is that something that we can do right now? Because the ordinance exists. So if they're trying to keep us out of the center using orientations and training and everything else, the reality is that we have an ordinance that exists right now that gives us authority, and it gives us subpoena power. So we need to understand as a board, what does that mean? And we need to get legal representation so that we can move forward on that. That's number two. Number three, I think that outside third party, Mike's involved, Mike's organization is involved in it, others are involved in it. I think that there are legal challenges. I think there is litigation, which is why I think that this administration, to include the corrections commissioner and the city attorney, which is why they don't want us to do our job, because there is litigation. And so those third parties and you know, as a board member, that's not my issue. It is my issue, but it's not my fight. I'm dealing with one battlefield, and that's the board. That's the battlefield that I choose to fight on right now. I think other organizations choose to fight in a court of law, and I support that, and I think that's great. But I do agree with the chair that we have protested in this city, and I got to be careful with this because I'm a board member. I'm a board member. But there are people in this city, which, you know, the public engagement part that the young lady spoke about previously, that public engagement part may not be with this board. It may be in other venues, in other areas. And so I think that, to your answer, as specific as I can, I think that those are the steps that we have to take right now. We are public, Marcus. We've been public. Most of us on this board have made public comments. We've been forthright about what we believe. So I think we have to continue those things and look at some other things that I just mentioned. I hope that's helpful.
Yes. And in closing, my last thing is, I just think it's imperative that we take it to the level that needs to be, because at this very moment, people are suffering from mental illnesses as a result of those deplorable conditions. I mean,
You're right.
post-traumatic stress disorder, things like, and then being sent home with that mental illness with no aftercare. So
Absolutely.
I think it's very important that we actually act now, and we let them know about the mental illnesses that they're creating while they're holding people in those deplorable conditions.
I agree.
Marcus,
I agree with you 100%.
I want to give one final comment on what you've said. And then I want to open it up to see if there are other members of the public who want to say something. But as far as raising it to the, I'm not sure how you put it, raising it to the level it needs to be raised. In my eyes, the highest level is the mayor. Is it not? In this city, the highest level is the mayor. I have not heard from the mayor my entire time as chair. The only times I've met the mayor were at protests, and it was a long time ago. It was when I was at protesting the inhumanity in St. Louis. That's where I met her. That's where I saw her. That's why I believed in her. I haven't heard from her since. I can't imagine that you have a jail like this in your city, and the Detention Facilities Oversight Board has not heard from you. I really don't know what level to raise this to, because the warden does not seem to answer to anyone. Not the Public Safety Committee, not Director Coyle, not the public, no one. So I'm not sure that we could raise any more alarms than we've already raised. I'm not sure we could raise any more alarms than 6 deaths has raised. I don't know how long things can go on like this at the CJC. I'm certain that if things don't change, there will be more deaths. And the city is just wasting time. There is no point in protecting the city from litigation if you're not going to do anything to improve the conditions for people still alive in your city, somehow still alive. Do we have anyone else from the public that would like to speak? Uh, oh, Alder Aldridge, hi. I see your hand
Hello.
is raised.
Yeah, how everybody doing?
Fine,
Uh,
Oliver. It's always
yeah,
always great to be in your presence.
it's definitely great to be in y'all presence. I want to say thank each and every you for y'all service. Um, so I'm alderman of the 14th ward, the vice chair of the Public Safety Committee.
Ooh.
Yeah, to give a little context, for me coming in, elections happened in April. First time I heard about some of the conditions, at least in a more formal way, Rev, we've been hearing about from our protest side of injustices that has just been going on in jails in the city, but in prisons all across the state. But Mr. Brumman came in front of the budget committee during the budget process. Right after he came in front of the budget committee, he resigned, which that raised a lot of eyebrows to Board of Alderman members. After he put his resignation letter out there, I will give credit to Chairman of the Public Safety Committee, Brett Ryan, who talked with his committee members and said we needed to have him come in front of us to talk about what we can do. And that meeting that took place last week, where we heard from Mr. Brumman on some of the things that was going on, and somebody from the mayor's office. I will say everybody on the Public Safety Committee, with hearing directly from Mr. Brumman, was alarmed. If you guys go back, it is public meeting. Myself and other members asked a lot of questions about why you all are being blocked from going to the jail. And I will also say that, this Public Safety Committee, with the ability and power that we do have, because this committee does not have, I appreciate Ms. Taylor talking about who appoints who. We do not appoint anybody. We are kind of like an oversight. I did get your letter just today, Mr. Chairman, as I opened in my mailbox and plan to respond to you. I know it is this committee do want to have more hearings and try to get to the bottom of how we can make sure that there is transparency going on in our jails, and that at the time we was also talking about the civilian site legislation that passed. How do we make sure that, if possible, things need to be changed so that the goal of that piece of legislation is to have some more transparency? So I won't say too much, but I will say that myself, and that's why I'm on this call today and been listening from y'all in closed session and everything. Myself and other members of the Public Safety Committee is taking this situation serious from when we've got notice of it. That's why we had a hearing, and as we are also juggling other bills, or trying to make sure that we continue to keep this at the forefront. As the vice chair, I will talk with Chairman Brett Ryan to see the next time we can schedule one. We will be going on summer break real quick, but even in the meeting, like I stated, I do think it's important that all the people go into the jails to see the conditions. And I'm not saying go in announce. I think it's better to go in unannounced. So I just want to thank each and every member on this committee for the work that y'all doing. I know it's been frustrating. We felt that in the committee as we heard the testimony. And again, you can go back and watch it. It's all live. And again, this Public Safety Committee is taken in the little 2 months, really month and a half since we've been in office, and this has been brought to us in the last several weeks, is taking these concerns and lack of transparency and lack of allowing board members to go into these detention facilities very seriously. So I hope that just gets a little bit of, I know how it feels when you constantly get a door closed in your face over and over again. But again, I will say, as Vice Chair Reverend Gray said, it's some responsibility on elected officials at the Board of Aldermen who have campaigned on this. And I can say we are, and myself personally, but we are taking it serious. What can we do? Who to listen to? And like I say, we did get your letter. I forgot your name, Mr. Chair. I got it today and plan to talk to my chairman, Alderman Orion, on ways that we can move forward on it.
Thank you. Just chair is fine. My name's Janice. I see that a lot of other people in the public are raising their hands. I'm gonna try to keep us moving since it's 7:47, and I promised staff that we would cut off at 7:30 so that we only needed the meeting room for until 7:30. Sorry, but we're gonna try to keep this moving. But to respond to you, Alderperson Aldridge, I'm sorry that this is the first time we're meeting because what I say might sound rude, and maybe it is. Sorry again. But I don't appreciate that no members of the public were heard from at the first hearing. I wasn't heard from at the first hearing. I hear you about wanting to do more, have more hearings to get to the bottom of this. But members of the public have been screaming about the conditions at the CJC for years of city officials trying to get to the bottom of it. And I just want us to keep in mind when we act, is what we're doing improving the quality of life for someone at the CJC? And if it's not, what are we actually doing? I appreciate that the point that the Public Safety Committee has hearings, but 6 hearings, 12 hearings, 24 hearings, if they're not going to improve someone's quality of life, they're just hearings.
And I heard what you said, not gonna go into a back and forth. I will say again, our scope at the board, as we've been there a month and a half, our scope at the board after just figuring out about Mr. Brumman resignation, as soon as we figured out about it, we got directly on it. I don't know you too much, Mr. Chair, but I do know other members after that happened is when because I haven't been following the work directly as coming from the state level to the local level. Once I've heard about it from other members on this committee, I made it my priority to not just talk with them, read some of the documents that was sent, and made sure that we at least start that process from what we can do at the Board of Aldermen. If it's through legislation, because we cannot fire, we can sign on to letters, but we cannot fire members. But what we can do is go into this facility after, at least again, that it was brought to my attention. I appreciate getting your letter today. And after getting it, like I said, we'll follow up with you tomorrow on what can be done. I haven't been here for a year. I'm here now, and I'm trying to figure out what can be done to move forward.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I would say that other than the media, the Public Safety Committee has been the most interested in our work and in moving quickly. So I do appreciate that. Do you mind pulling up on Swar so I could see some hands, the participants? Could you scroll down? Okay, I can't tell, but whoever has their hand raised, could you come off mute?
Yeah, this is Jake Lionfields. Can you hear me?
Hi, yes, I will give you a 2-minute and a 1-minute warning.
Perfect. Thank you, Chair. And I appreciate you letting us know what title you prefer to be referred to as. My name is Jake Lionfields. I live in the 7th Ward on the 3500 block of California. I've been a member of the Gravoy Park neighborhood for almost 9 years. And I'm a volunteer with the Freedom Community Center's Core Watch program. I've been doing that for about 15 or 16 months now. All of the speakers tonight who have talked about the deplorable conditions of the jail are absolutely correct. And I applaud the DFOB for its work, both in attempting to secure transparency, but also in calling for the resignation of Ms. Clemens Abdullah, because she is breaking the law and obstructing justice and enabling abuse. Furthermore, I appreciate you, Alderperson Aldridge, for attending this meeting tonight. I know that you just got elected and you were previously in the state legislature, so I hear you when you say that you haven't been here for the vast majority of the time of the DFOB's existence. And since the public comment period has been maybe a bit more informal than other public comment periods I've been a part of. I'd like to ask, and if it's appropriate to ask, and if it's not, please cut me off or tell me. But I'd like to ask Alderperson Aldridge if he would support and introduce legislation that meets one of the DFOB's central demands of our city government, which is to have independent representation aside from the representation that is being inadequately provided by the city councilor's office.
Thank you for your comment. I can say that I think that's a great idea. And I think we're gonna have to leave it at that unless Alderperson Aldridge.
I think that is also a great idea, and we have to look at what that looks like legislatively as well as financially.
Yeah.
Okay.
Perfect. I appreciate that. And then if you don't mind, I just wanted to, again, reiterate that having another public safety committee meeting is only going to be valuable insofar as the DFOB is adequately represented at that meeting and is able to speak to its concerns to Chairperson Narayan and the other members of the Public Safety Committee. Additionally, any alderperson who cares about criminal justice reform in the city, and that I include my own alderwoman, Ms. Sanye, in that list, needs to be calling for the resignation of Commissioner Clemens Abdullah and needs to be supporting legislation that provides the DFOB independent counsel apart from the city councilor's office.
Hear, hear.
With that, I
Thanks.
wanted to close that. Thank you.
Hear,
Thank you,
hear.
Jake.
Hear, hear.
I'm glad you brought up your ward. I'm actually in the 4th ward, which is Public Safety Committee Chair Brett Narayan's ward. Just a useless fact, really. Is there another member of the public? I see 2 hands up. Could one of you come off mute?
Yes, Jay Nelson, Chief of Staff to President of the Board of Aldermen, Megan Green.
Hi,
Thank
Jay.
you. Hey, Jensen. Thank you, Chair and members of the committee. I have been listening intentfully. We have been paying attention. I really just wanted to raise my hand to give a concern to the committee member, Reverend Gray, on his concerns, and to just piggyback off of what Alderman Aldridge said. I can assure you that our office is currently looking at legislation that would give this committee the authority and the power to have their own legal representation. What does that look like? We're currently working through that. We would love to work with committee members to work on that, but I wanted to come off mute because this is an important topic to our office. This is something that we will continue to actively work on. It doesn't matter the amount of time we've been in this position or in this seat. This is something that is important. This is something that we want to do. So I just wanted to go on record to say that we are currently actively looking at legislation to make that happen. We will work with the Public Safety Committee and members of the Board of Aldermen to do our best to continue to make this oversight board an actual oversight board. So those are my comments here today.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
I really appreciate that. And it sounds like Vice Chair Gray would be a great point person to talk to on the board about independent counsel or that legislation. I'm sure he'd be happy to hear from you. Is that right?
I would do whatever my chair directed, designated me to do. I serve at the pleasure of my chair.
Great.
It'd be an honor.
Well, Reverend Gray, you'll get a text from me tonight and we'll move forward from there, sir.
All right, Pam, stop smiling. Stop smiling, Pam. I see you.
Another member of the public, could you come off mute? That's kind of a first come, first serve thing now. So
Good evening. Can you hear me okay?
yes, I will do a 2-minute warning and a 1-minute warning.
Okay, thank you so much. I am going to be brief. I just really wanted to, and I understand that this meeting and this process is very procedural and, being a board, there are a lot of checks and balances and protocols, et cetera, that have to be adhered to. And I truly understand that. But I just wanted to bring the human aspect back into the situation, especially because there are several people on this call who are either elected officials or represent elected officials. My name is Michelle Smith. I am also a volunteer with the Freedom Community Center's Court Watch program. And actually, I did Court Watch today. And every time I sit in this court and I see a group of Black men being led in chains and shackles, it does something to me. And that the image should do something to everybody. And I'm trying to a lot of times wrap my head around the fact that we have such a regurgitation and a mirror to the enslavement and the Jim Crow era, et cetera, going on today in our city and nationwide. And so many people, including Black people, walk around like this is just normal. And it truly bothers me. And again, when I see that, probably 2 weeks ago when I did Court Watch, they probably walked in 30 Black men that were shackled and chained together. And I'm just trying to understand, we have Black leadership, we have people, quote unquote, progressive, I'm doing air quotes on that, and still so many things are not changing. And we have money. A few weeks ago, amazing person, Inez Bordeaux said, St. Louis is not a poor city, we are a cheap city. And that is true because we're cheap when it comes to the poor. And I just really wanted, and I know you all are trying to do the work and it's a process and everything, but I just really want everyone to remember that there is a human aspect and we can do better for the people of this city, better than having them, so many people in jail and walking them around in chains and shackles as a regurgitation of 400 years ago. So I just wanted to really leave you with that picture and invite everybody on this call to sit in bond court one day. It happens every single day from 1 to probably 4 o'clock, depending on how many people there are, and sit there and watch these proceedings and how this city is honestly failing our community members. So I just wanted to leave you with that. And again, thank you for your time.
Thank you so much for saying that. Did you say you go by ML or Mich?
Yes, my name is Michelle, but normally I go by ML. Yes.
Okay, thank you, ML. Thank you for drawing the connection between jails and slavery. It's a one-to-one, so thank you. And my only explanation for people not being as, I don't know, enraged is that jails aren't exactly like plantations because they have walls. And not only physical walls, but all the walls that the city draws up where there can't be any oversight. And I think that's the real issue here, which, as I said before, if people could see, they would be horrified. And I speak of the people who actually cannot see this, because obviously there is a substantial part of this city that don't just see it, they lived it, and they will live it again. So thank you. What was the other thing I wanted to mention? Oh, that I love Inez Bordeaux. And I spoke at the press conference that you were talking about. It was a great press conference. I will go to, oh, there's no hands up. Okay, it looks like this meeting is coming to a close. The next meeting will be oh my gosh, the first Monday? Is that what we agreed on? That's like,
Yeah.
what's that, the third?
Like next week.
I think we might have to start with the third Monday, because it's hard to pull together for this meeting.
Yeah.
And we're gonna need a quorum, so even though that's 5 now. Next meeting is gonna be on the third Monday. For the public, we'll start with public comment and then we'll end with public comment. Thank you all members of the public that came today. Thank you all board members. Thank you, public officials. Would anyone like to move for us to go home to our families?
I so move adjournment.
Do I
I
hear a second?
second. I second.
Voice vote, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? We're out of here.
Bless you all.
Meeting
God
though,
bless
Chair.
you all. God bless you all. Great. Thank you, Chair.
No, I think if I say 7:30, then it'll be 8.